Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mormonish. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Landon.
Yeah, I hope everybody recognizes you over there. I've seen posts in various places saying, whatever happened to Brandon on Mormonish? What do you say to that?
I say I've disappeared. I can't make it all the time, so I've
Uh,
had to be partial at this point.
that's right. Partial, emeritus almost. That's
Yes,
right.
I'm
I just,
emeritus,
I just think it's
Mormonish
cute.
emeritus.
I just think it's cute that after almost 3 years, we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary of Mormonish, that some people still think your name is Brandon.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
I agree. It's totally fine. Totally fine. Well, I'm really excited that we get to do an episode together. This will be really fun. So, this is a topic that I've actually had this topic kind of in the queue ready to go for a while. And it has to do with the concept of the only true church. Now, when we were growing up, the LDS church was the only true church. Is that how you kind of framed it when you were growing up?
Absolutely. It had to be the only true church. If it wasn't the only true church, there's no reason for restoration. It didn't need to be restored if everyone already had the truth and the saving ordinances. So when I was on my mission, that's what we taught. We're the only ones with the power and the authority and the truth. So,
Yep. That's exactly how it was framed for me too. I mean, sometimes they would throw other churches a bone and they would say, of course, there is some light, perhaps some partial truths in other religions, but this is the whole enchilada. This is the only true church. Now, my question is, have you noticed a extreme backing away from that concept in the last couple years, especially?
I think I've noticed that when they're dealing with non-members or other churches, I think they've backed away from that. I think inside the church, you're still going to hear that they're the only true church and everybody wink, wink, nod, nod. We
Yeah.
all know we're the true church, but we're trying to be more Christian and open, so we'll back off in the public eye and not say that as much.
Yeah, I think that's true. As they try more and more to align themselves with mainstream Christianity, which we have done multiple podcasts on and talked about that quite a bit, it kind of alienates other denominations if you say, well, we like you and we want to be part of you, but we are the only true church. I think it's funny. It reminds me of, who was it? Which apostle was it where he was interviewed or asked, so you're an apostle? And back in the day, if an apostle were asked that, he would have said something like, yes, I am. I represent Jesus. I talked to Jesus. But what was it that he said? And I don't remember which one it was, dang it. But he said something like, well, that's what they
That's
say.
what
I mean,
they say. Yep.
it was so dialed back. They are just not going to come out and make any of those claims that they used to just, pound the pulpit and have no problem saying, we're the one, we're it. So I came across a couple posts actually on Faithful social media asking about this question, the one true church question. And a lot of our episodes kind of stem from things that I read on Faithful social media because I think it's interesting to take the pulse of what people are thinking. People are kind of on different pages. We talk about this, how maybe someone who's older has a different perspective, someone who's younger has another perspective, but this comes from a question from a faithful member of the LDS church. And if we go to the next slide, I will show you the question. Let's see, there you go. I'll let you read the question because I don't think you've seen my slides yet that I made, so you'll be giving fresh eyes to this. So this is
Okay.
from Faithful Social Media.
Yeah, it says this is kind of a long-winded question, but here it goes. I assist with lessons with the missionaries, and a lot of time we encounter people who ask how we can be so sure that our religion is the truth. They say that other religions also believe they have the truth, so we are obviously not the only ones. It's really hard for me to find a good response to the question. I'd be very grateful if someone would help. I'm specifically talking here about it being from the perspective of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as a response to someone who might be practicing a different religion or is aware that people of other religions believe theirs to be true.
So, that's a sincere question. Here's a person who maybe he's a mission leader, maybe something like that, but he's in on conversations with missionaries and people who are investigating the church. And the people inevitably say, well, there's truth everywhere. Why should I, think that you guys have all the truth And this person is saying, yeah, what is a good answer to that? So we're going to go through some of the answers that some of the people on this thread gave this person, which I thought were very interesting because it is kind of a big question, right? And like you said, the difference from when we were growing up, where, we went to school, we sat there in junior high, and we knew that we belonged to the only true church in the world, no matter what anybody else said, right? We had that assurity. And I think it's very different now.
It reminds me of families can be together. The members of the church, we always say, oh, well, we have the temple, our family will be together. And that's what we're taking to the world. But you ask anyone else in the world who believes in an afterlife if they're going to be with their family. And of course they believe they're going to be with their family. The only difference between the LDS church and other beliefs is the others don't believe you have to go through all these temple rituals and ceremonies. They believe that when you die, you're going to go be with your family. And I guess the Mormons, if you want to talk family, it's, well, we're going to continue to have children forever and ever and ever, and
Yes.
you're not. And I agree, other religions don't believe they're going to continue to have spiritual offspring forever. But are you really even with a family if you're having millions of offspring, and your children are having millions of offspring? You're just there with millions of other people. But that is what, when we say the church is true, it's just like us saying, well, we know that our family will be together. Well, it's the same thing. They think theirs is true. They think their family is going to be together.
Yeah, it's kind of the ultimate takeaway for missionaries, right? You knock on the door, hey, do you think your family's going to be together forever after they die? Well, yeah, my family and I believe that. No, you won't. No, you won't. Not unless you come with us, right?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It really is this idea of eternal sex, right? That sets us apart. Other people are like, what are you talking about? That is not what's happening.
It's the same thing with is the church is true. Hey, have you been baptized? Yes, I have. Well, no, you haven't.
Yeah. No, you haven't. No,
you
you
have
haven't.
to do it again because it didn't count.
It's a takeaway. It's a huge takeaway. Yeah, it's very funny. Oh my gosh. All right, let's go to our next slide. I think this is a great topic. So I love this. Richard Dawkins, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, of course, he says how thoughtful of God to arrange matters so that wherever you happen to be born, the local religion always turns out to be the true one. Have you heard this quote before, Landon?
I have, or I've heard it rephrased another way. How convenient that the true church is the one that your parents happen to belong to.
Mm-hmm.
No matter where in the world you are, the true church is the one your parents belong to and raised you and taught you about. So, absolutely. And I'm reading right now Dan McClellan's book. The Bible says so, and it is very interesting because I just read about this, and he talks about how many different gods there were, that originally in the Bible there was a group of gods, and there were 70 nations at the time, and so they assigned a god to each nation, and each nation had its own god, and that god took care of that nation. That actually makes more sense than what we do today, that hey, hey, I was raised in this culture and my God is true, and I don't have to believe in their God, but their God is true to them. And each local custom had their own God and relationship with their own deity. Eventually, Judaism and others went monotheistic and said, oh, God, our God is more important than all the other gods. And over time that went away. But yeah, absolutely. When you look back at history, it's amazing that you see how many gods have come and gone, and all of these people believed in the God that they were under at the time.
Yep, that's exactly right. And it is usually the religion that you are born into, which is why I think President Oaks, right out of the gate, is making a huge push, have more children, right? You know that one of the most effective vectors for keeping people inside a religion and building membership is to raise somebody in that religion.
Well, we just saw a post of 110 baptisms in Sierra Leone, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they were all kids.
They were all children.
They were all children. And so what do? if you want people to believe in your God, you get them young and you train them up to believe in that God. And that's how you convince them it's the true church, is it's the one they were raised with.
Yep, I think it's the age-old formula that works. All right, let's move on to our next slide. I love Richard Dawkins. So we're going to talk about, say, what is truth? You remember that hymn, Landon?
I do, yes.
Yeah. So if we go to the next slide, there is a little bit of a cold here. So the reality of the one true church. I'll read this. Heavenly Father loves all of his children, and in his wisdom has always provided them truth as he sees fit. From the church website, see Alma 2928. Simple observation readily confirms a good deal of truth in other churches. So like I said, they kind of throws everybody else a bone. There is some good, there is some truth in other churches. Yet the Lord has declared the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to be the only true and living church upon the face of the whole earth, with which I, the Lord, am well pleased, speaking unto the church collectively and not individually. D&C 130. The Church of Jesus Christ is not true because its members try harder than those of any other faiths to please God. Rather, the church is true because Christ himself established, authorized, and acknowledges the continuing work therein as valid and eternal. The church is true because it possesses the necessary authority, ordinances, and true doctrine, all of which are bestowed by God. So that's pretty clear. We may not say it anymore to others or even internally. I feel like we don't necessarily get up and say this is the one true church. We will say, I believe the church is true. But here it is pretty clear. It's the only one on the face of the earth, the only one.
Yeah, they've said it over and over. We're the only ones authorized to work for the Lord. Everyone else is just pretending to be church. I think we've even heard that one before.
Brad Wilcox.
Playing
church. That's
playing
right. They're
church,
simply
that's right.
Playing church. It just really begs the question, if it is God's only church on earth, why? Why so small? Why such few, members, smaller than the JW, smaller than the Seventh-day Adventists, small.
And why so U.S. centric?
Yes.
The church changes and makes decisions based on the U.S. government, U.S. culture, all of this. You got to wear a white shirt and tie, the 1950s IBM look in the U.S. Regardless of whether you're in Africa or Tonga or South America. This is the look of white Americans. A church that didn't even believe that black people could hold the priesthood or participate in temple ordinances just in my lifetime. How is that God limits it to such a small group of people and to some, desert in the middle of Utah is the one place that he puts all of his children and raises his church. It's as ridiculous as that the one God of Israel, the one God lives in Israel and has a chosen people and just ignores the rest of the world.
Exactly.
When you think about it, that's ridiculous. He happened to be the God of Israel, one of those 70 gods, and he was their God, but he happened to make it out of that group of gods over time, and now everyone worship him as the one true God. But he used to be just a local god like every other god.
Yep. And like you said, Constantine's mom, hey, I like this. I kind of want to join this religion and worship this God, right? And Constantine, yeah, I can see how this could work for me, right? I mean, you just need somebody to back your God, and there you go. It takes off.
Yeah, someone with a lot of power and authority like Constantine, who was able to force everybody to change religion and enforce a state religion. It's amazing that the way Christianity grew is exactly what we teach is Satan's plan, that they were forced.
They were forced
to choose and live it. Yep.
Yeah, it's true.
And those same people who accepted it believed all of the Roman gods up until that point.
That's right.
Just goes to show you.
It does go to show you. It's kind of interesting when you delve in. So, okay. So I think if we go to the next slide, I think, let's see. Oh, here we go. President Packer. These are just some quotes from some of the early leaders, because I know we'll get people that'll say they never used to teach it was the one true church, right? Anytime we say something from our day, our generation, people are like, they never, they did not say that. I just want to show that they did say that. It was an absolute fact to us. We were the only true church on the face of the earth. Do you want to read President Packer?
Yeah, President Packer further explains the position that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the only true church upon the face of the earth is fundamental. Fundamental. Perhaps it would be more convenient and palatable and popular if we were to avoid it. Nevertheless, we are under a sacred obligation and a sacred trust to hold to it. It is not merely an admission. It is a positive declaration. It is so fundamental that we cannot yield on this point. There is but one Lord, one faith, one baptism.
Well, I wish he could fast forward and see what's happening now, where everybody is backpedaling on that whole idea as they try to align themselves with mainstream Christianity.
Yeah, not as fundamental as we once were taught, evidently.
Not at all. Not at all. And then we have President Kimball, who says, this Church of Jesus Christ, nicknamed Mormon, is the only true and living church, D&C 130, that is fully recognized by God, the only one properly organized with the authority to perform for him, and the only one with a total and comprehensive and true program, which will carry men to powers unbelievable and to realms incredible. I feel like I have to raise my arms. Realms incredible, right? Unbelievable and to realms incredible. This is absolute truth. This is not another church. This is the church. This is not another gospel or philosophy. This is the church and the gospel of Christ. I mean, these are the kind of statements that we were hearing over the pulpit and repeated then by our local leaders when we were growing up, which is why I testify, right? We had a surety that we belonged to the only true church. The other ones were just pretending. They were not real. And I have to say, they influenced the way a lot of us, I think, looked at like friends. I always talk about how I had Baptist friends, and I just remember being, I don't know, a little self-assured, a little smug, kind of like, yeah, you're doing your thing. Sure, you have better music, dances, more interesting sermons, fun coffee and donuts afterwards. But I and my family, we're members of the true church, right? You just had this little
We have
self-assurance.
food storage.
We have, and boy, did I have food storage. Oh my gosh. Yes, I did. That's a whole nother story. So yeah, anybody out there watching that's naysaying, this is absolutely what we were taught. So what does it mean that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the only true and living church? So these are some answers from some of the people on this thread, if we think back to our original question, as they try to explain to this person who's asking the question what we mean by that, how we can navigate it, how we can sort of soften the blow as we let other people know, right, that we're the only ones that have got the goods. Do you want to read this one, Landon?
The restored gospel found in the Lord's church provides knowledge and truth that isn't found anywhere else. It offers individual access to the sanctifying power of God through the Holy Ghost and the salvation and exaltation of the family of God through priesthood ordinances. In Doctrine and Covenants 130, the Lord declared that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the only true and living church upon the face of the whole earth, with which I, the Lord, am well pleased, speaking unto the church collectively and not individually. It's kind of funny because I now look at the church, that the good in the church is individual and not collective. The church itself is the rot. The people are the good part of the church.
Yeah, that's interesting because that is what people say, when something happens or they're wronged or hurt, they're all like, okay, that's not the church, right? That's just what individuals do. But individuals are how you access the church as a whole. So that is kind of an interesting way to look at it. All right, let's go to our next one. Okay, so I thought it would be really useful, and we've seen this many different times. Mormon Stories did a whole episode on this, but it's important, I think, to see that we're not the only ones that feel that way, right? Mormons are not the only ones that have a testimony of their God and their religion and absolutely know with 100% assurity that they are the ones that are correct. I remember, who was it that said it? If you want your children perhaps to think more critically about religion, take them to a whole bunch of churches, right, Landon? Was it Dr. Del Rey that said that? Recovery from
I
religion?
can't remember. It was in one of the books that we were reading, the person had said, I took them to a whole bunch of churches, and that turned to me atheists because they saw all the different teachings and said, how can all of these people be right? So
right. And I think they also, at a very young age, saw they all think they're right. Every single church I've gone to, everybody stands up and says, I know for sure. And it makes you sort of become a little critical thinker and say, how can everyone know for sure? And then you start looking for other reasons. So this is an awesome compilation of different people from different religions bearing their testimonies. We're going to kind of play some of these and then talk around them. But the first one, of course, is one that we're all very familiar with. This is the representational Mormon on this video. So let's play this.
While I was laboring under the extreme difficulties caused by the contest of these parties of religionists, I was one day reading the Epistle of James, 1st chapter and 5th verse, which reads, If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him.
The best way of finding truth is simply go to the origin of all truth and ask.
Please, who do I have to follow?
Scientology.
The Catholic Church.
To the prophet Joseph Smith.
The Seventh-day Adventists.
So yeah, right there, you can sort of see what we're going to be going through. Everybody has a testimony like this, right? Everybody has an experience like this. Have you seen this compilation before, Landon?
Yeah, I have. And it's interesting because, he says, go to the source of all truth, God. What God? How many gods have there been? There have been thousands of gods. So if you're searching for the true God, how can you ask God? Every God will tell you they're the true God if you're going to ask them, and you just believe in your mind and you study about them and say, Jupiter, I love Jupiter. He's a great God. Oh, Mars, what a wonderful war God. I love him. If he's the guy you love and you study, that's going to be the one that's going to speak to you. The God that you're not going to know is the God that you've never heard of before. And so what if God is out there, but nobody's ever heard of him? No one would know the truth because no one would know which God to ask.
Yep, that's exactly right. So, all right, let's go to our next slide. I just think it's really useful to look at all these, and it really does boil down to feelings and emotions. And I think when we were growing up, it was more, you can know this, you can study this will be proven to you, right? This is kind of what it was. It was a very intellectual process. I think now it's all about feelings. Everything is sort of put all that other stuff aside. How do you feel? How does it make you feel? Do you feel that you know? So I think there's been a huge shift towards feelings, that it wasn't like that maybe when we were growing up.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. On a mission, we used to, say, follow the Moroni's promise. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God. And the problem is nowadays, you don't have to lack wisdom. You can find out.
You can ask ChatGPT.
you can do some searches and you'll find out real quick that what you're being told isn't true. So you don't need to pray about it because you've already, you can look it up. The lack of wisdom is things you can't look up. Then maybe you might have to turn to something else. But there is so much in this church you can research and find out that you don't need to pray about. You can just go do the research.
Yep, I think that's true. But I still think there's this attitude, as we read this from President Nelson, almost still an arrogance that, we represent Jesus and his church. And I think we see this in temple building as they deal with different city governments and cities where they're just so assured No, this is Jesus's house. We have to build it because he lives on the second floor. He's going to be in our temple, right? And the city governments are like, okay. You can see that they're just like, oh my God, I had no idea these guys were so fanatical. I belong to a church, says Mayor so-and-so, and we believe Jesus' spirit is with us, but we're never going to make this claim that actual Jesus is going to go live in a building that you built and have to build really tall because he's going to live on the second floor.
Yeah, agreed. It looks cultish.
It looks cultish. It looks crazy. And people just kind of go, okay, So President Nelson says, I'd say the vast majority of churches have lots of truth and are good. Okay, so that's very different from what leaders were saying even 20 years ago, right? We read those other quotes. They were hammering.
I believe the Book of Mormon calls the Catholic Church the whore of all the earth.
Exactly. Oh, I was raised with that. Yeah, the whore of the earth. Oh my gosh. I remember asking my parents in junior high if I could go with a friend to a Catholic Christmas Eve mass. No, I could not do that. That's the whore of the earth, right? I'm like, the what?
And then they softened it and said, well, no, that's not the Catholic Church. That's all churches.
Yeah, all churches are the whore of the earth.
Except for us.
Right. And then we forget, and I didn't go through the temple when I think they had 3 different representations of pastors, right? That would come in during the endowment ceremony and,
and they were
preach.
Wearing the collar.
And then they were seen as, the message was, these are evil, these are of the world, and then it finally kind of condensed down to one pastor representing false teachings. And I don't think they do that at all anymore, do they?
Yeah, I think they got rid. I'm pretty sure they got rid of him.
Right, exactly. But that's how it used to be. Yeah.
But before he was there hanging out with Satan, I think.
Yeah. It was the bad guy with the twisty mustache.
Yeah.
Come to my Baptist church, right?
Instead of the twisty mustache, he just had a preacher's collar on.
Yeah. No, he was the evil villain. I mean, the endowment is like a melodrama, kind of, with these stereotypical characters that represent these things. So anyway, let's see. President Nelson goes on to say, they have lots of truth and good. The Spirit will confirm the truth to you. So again, feelings, whether it's in our church or another one, or not in a church at all. That's interesting too. In that way, it can be hard to make the distinction. Our church is different for a few reasons. Number one, this is the restored church of Jesus Christ as it was when he was on earth. Okay, you could do a whole podcast on that statement right there, Landon, couldn't you?
You absolutely could, because there was no church when Jesus Christ was on the earth, and there were no apostles. He ordained his apostles, I guess, but there was no church, there was no hierarchy, there was no relief society, there was no Melchizedek and Aaronic priesthood. We don't read about any of those in the Bible. We read about the Aaronic priesthood. It was with the Jews, not with the Christians. He never gave any of those powers on earth. There was not a prophet who was in a first presidency. The church says there are, but it's not recognized by any other church. Peter was the first pope, according to the Catholics. Right. So, you can go on and on about this, but the bottom line is Jesus did not establish a church on earth. That did not come for decades later before they started to form anything that looked like a church.
Yeah. And once you recognize that, then everything kind of falls apart. And then when you recognize that everybody of the era of Joseph Smith was trying to restore a church, that was a movement that was happening. Everybody thought we need to go back to the pure ways, the early church. It was nothing new under the sun whatsoever. And then President Nelson goes on to say, not just church about Jesus, his church. And again, that's the kind of stuff that we see hammered when they're temple building, right? And it's a good litmus test because you have all these residents and you have city councils that are most of them go to a church, belong to a church, worship. And then you got this church that comes in and goes, this is his church, his building, we have the monopoly. And it just makes you look like a crazy person.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Number 2, President Nelson says, because of that, he still leads and guides us through prophets. We don't have to guess at what he would want us to do. His mouthpiece is here with his lighted pen. I added that, and can receive revelation for the whole world, the entire world.
And let me ask you, what revelation has any of these prophets received for the whole world? That we're not to be called Mormons anymore. Is that the prophet? I mean, tell me a prophecy that President Nelson made that benefits the whole world and that we didn't have to guess at. Weren't we there during COVID when everyone was going, what are we supposed to do? And it was crickets.
Silence. Yep.
Silence. Did they pull the missionaries out in time? No, many of them got stuck because the prophet didn't know what to do. We see this all over. I can't think of a single thing that President Nelson said that the whole world was a revelation for the whole world. I mean, the only thing I can even think of is that we're not to be called Mormons, and that we are to have 2-hour church, and that we're going to have 300 temples, which isn't what I would call a revelation. That was a building program, and you recently had covered that about how they came in with a committee and said, "Here's a list of places to build temples," and he picked and chose from that list. So.
Yeah, it was absolutely. A computer algorithm. Not a revelation, but they keep punching up lately the global faith leader component, right? Global faith leader. Even President Oaks, in his, one of his interviews that he had right at the beginning, said, we represent or are in charge of all of God's children on the face of the earth, right? And then he said something about, a special blessing to everyone who believes in Jesus Christ. Well, that's not the whole earth. That's just a percentage of the earth. It's like
25%, maybe. Yeah. And I can guarantee you, if you go outside the Morador and you just walk up to someone and say, President Russell Nelson has told us, they'll say, who?
Well, and I think his funeral kind of, indicated that. When you look at the Pope's funeral that was just recently, and the new inauguration, I can't even say it with my cold, it really was a global event. It really was televised everywhere. And our prophet dies. And, of course, there's mentions in newspapers and things. But as far as world dignitaries attending and flying in from all parts of the world, that didn't happen, Small, very small.
Again, local God. They're worshiping God. Mormon God is a local Utah God.
Yeah. Just
like Yahweh was in the Jewish time. Yes, there were Jews living in Egypt and the diaspora. They were spread out and they still worshipped him. The Jews did, but outside of Israel, very few people knew who he was. And it's the same way with Mormon God today. Outside of Utah, there's very few people who know Mormon Jesus.
Yep. And I will say that some people, you hear this a lot, the Jesus that they're worshiping is not the right Jesus. So other denominations do recognize that there is a difference in this local God that we worship, right? They do say that quite often. It's not the same.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. So number 3, because of prophets and God directly guiding his church, and we can be sure that all of God's truth can be found through his gospel at this church. All of the truth is here, right? I think it's more of a good, better, best thing. Other churches and places of the worship are good, but why not receive more of the truth here?
Yeah. You can come to the LDS church and you can learn polygamy. You can learn racism and blacks not having the priesthood. You can learn that only families that don't have gay people in them are the correct families. You can learn that marriage is only between one man and one woman, even though you taught polygamy before. I don't know. The truth seems to change pretty constantly in the LDS church, especially as history and as people have studied and found that the things that we're being taught are just simply not sustainable any longer. And in almost every case, the church on the big questions has been wrong.
Yep.
Polygamy,
certainly not
they were
forward
wrong.
thinking. Yeah.
Blacks in the priesthood, they were wrong.
Yeah.
yeah, you can go on with many of these, and they're going to be wrong with LGBTQ. Eventually, they're going to have to accept that. That they consistently they were wrong with morality and length of garments.
That's what I mean. These small changes are actually big to people as how they perceive it, because they go, why? Why would God, if God's directed everything, switch it so quickly? November 15th. Why? Then why was it switched? Even something as simple as the weird fifth session at conference, right? Oh, it's a man's session. Oh, it's a woman's session. Now it's an adult session. Now it doesn't exist. Now it's, but it makes people kind of go, God, why all this flip-flopping? Why? Where's the consistency? Why does anything matter, honestly?
Well, and God directly guiding his church, we see where, Nelson would get up and just announce temple after temple after temple. And then as soon as he dies, we know there was a list of, what was it, 17 temples?
17 temples. I have it confirmed. Someone saw it. It was supposed to be announced. Yep.
And evidently God pulled back and all of a sudden said, oh, no, now that he's dead. And, when Hinckley was alive, we were all Mormons. And once he died, Nelson, how is that God directing the church? That sure sounds like a man is directing the church and putting his ideas out there, not God's. If God was directing it, it wouldn't change from one prophet to another when people died.
Yeah, it wouldn't have to change because it would always be correct. God knows everything, and it would always be correct from the very beginning. There would be no course correction. So, all right, let's go to our next slide. I think this is, here we go. Okay, so we're going to show a few more of these because I just think they're really powerful. And these people, they're so sincere and their emotion is so real, and they believe so strongly in something other than Mormonism.
I found an archive called the Mantina Archives, and contained within it was a book called the Book of Haggai, and it felt whole and building, and it testified of Jesus Christ. It says in the preface that I should ask God if it's from him, pray about it, and he would tell me if it's true. I prayed about it, and I received a confirmatory feeling, just like I had felt with the Book of Mormon, that the Book of Haggai is good and true and valuable, just like the Book of Mormon. I couldn't distinguish that feeling from anything else that I had felt previously. It was a spiritual confirmation. And I remember kneeling down in my living room and just crying.
I've been searching for a witness of this work and of this church, and just tonight, I got my witness. And it's burning within my soul of how important this work is and how true it is. I know it is. And it's hard to believe that just a year ago I was in high school. And now I'm in a plural marriage and struggling. But I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that this is the Lord's work, that I have finally found it. I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Okay, that is really hard to watch right there. Those were both LDS breakoffs. They believed in the Book of Mormon. They had a confirmation of that. And then they got further light and knowledge, right? The first guy from the Book of Haggai, and the second one was a polygamous breakoff where a very young girl is now in a polygamous marriage. But the emotions, the feelings, the testimony, we all recognize that, right? It sounds indistinguishable from what you would hear at a mainstream LDS testimony meeting.
So how do we explain that, we just heard, one of the apostles say, go and ask the source of all truth, God, which one is right. And both of these people did. And both of these people got an answer that was different than what he said you would get. And these people weren't raised in these churches. These are feelings they had that they changed churches. So, any thinking person has to say, so is the Spirit and is the voice of God a reliable witness if everyone's getting it? The best you can argue is that God would tell you what church is best for you. because otherwise he'd be giving the same answer to everybody.
Wow, that's a really interesting perspective. What is best for you? And there is a focus increasing, I think, on personal revelation, but that's a double-edged sword, because what if the revelation you're getting doesn't match what, say, leadership is saying? I've seen this with garments where people say, no, I worked it out with the Lord, and this is what I'm comfortable with, and this is what I'm doing. I've had my personal revelation about garments or coffee or attendance, whatever it is. So it's definitely a double-edged sword. But that one just breaks my heart, when she said, I'm struggling, right? That you feel that God is having you do something that's, so detrimental to you. That is just really hard to watch. So.
Yeah, and the church leaders will always tell you, well, you're allowed personal revelation as long as it doesn't interfere with what we told you.
Yeah, no, they've come out more and more and said that because they've had to. I mean, that's since the early days of the church, where Joseph Smith was all about everybody gets a revelation. And then, okay, wait, I got to put some stuff in the D&C that says only I can get the revelation.
Yeah, and if you get a revelation that's different than ours is always right. In which case, do you really have personal revelation? And if the only thing that you can have personal revelation on is things that nobody else has made any declaration on, then it's really just a choice or an option that you chose.
Well, and it's pray until you get in line with what the brethren want, kind of like the November 15th. I think this is a modern example where everybody was like, this goes against every single fiber of my being, what I think morally and ethically, and just, from a place of compassion. But I prayed myself into saying, okay, I think it's okay. I mean, you had that experience. You told me, Landon, that you.
Well, I had the opposite experience, though. I heard that and I said, this can't be right.
Right.
And then, they all said, well, you have to trust and I was like, this just still doesn't sound right. And then I went in and finally, after, I struggled with it for a couple of years, I went in and talked to the bishop about it and said, this is just wrong. I don't believe this. And he spent the next half hour telling me how we have to support the brethren. And then the next Wednesday, they repealed it and backed it off. So I'm like, my personal revelation was opposite of what the brethren had, but evidently mine was right and theirs was wrong, but I'm still supposed to listen to them. I don't get it.
So. Yep. Pray away your conscience is never a good idea.
Not a good idea. Yes.
Ever.
Well said. Yeah.
All right. Let's go to our next one. We have a couple more of these clips because I just think the more you see kind of in bulk, let's see, is that the next slide?
I think I may have skipped one.
I may have skipped one. I know I always make so many. Okay. Okay. Again, these are just some of the comments that I gleaned out of that post where regular members are trying to help this guy understand, what it means to be the one true church. You want to read this, Landon?
Yeah. The concept that you need to understand and be able to explain is epistemology. Epistemology is the study of knowledge and how we decide what is valid knowledge. The key here is accepting the subjectivity. That means accepting that someone else's answer will be different than yours without either answer being objectively right or wrong. I know that Christ is my Redeemer, and I know that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is Christ's true church here on earth. I am not bothered in the slightest that billions of people know that I'm wrong. They aren't the ones experiencing my life and making my choices. This is my life and my journey. Therefore, I'm not worried about their knowing conflicting with my knowing, so long as everyone respects the subjectivity of their own knowing.
Well, it's very high level, isn't it?
It is, but what they're arguing is that everyone can have their own belief and they're all true, which is exactly contrary to what the church said. If every church can be true and everyone's truth is the same, then one church isn't true. All churches are true and no church is true. All things are true at the same time. Then the argument you're making here makes absolutely no sense. If you want to say my church is right for me, go ahead, but then don't say my church is the only true church.
Right.
Because that is now not correct when you say that.
Yep. No, that's exactly right. And honestly, anybody could say in a testimony meeting, I believe that this church is true for me. It works for me. It's my truth. And you could not argue with that.
No.
I mean, that is their experience and that is what they're saying. So you really can't. But yeah, I wonder if this person was ever a missionary, because they seem to have sort of a very high level view of all this, right?
Well, this is one thing I notice with the church is the gospel, they always want the gospel to be very simple when they're teaching. They're always oh, this is simple. But then as soon as it doesn't make sense or you point out a conflict, they all of a sudden go really high and say, oh, well, you got to learn epistemology and how we learn and how we know and da-da-da, and some truth, this statement, I agree that truth can be subjective. I mean, if I'm a black child in 1950s Alabama and I walk into a white neighborhood, I can very easily say, this is not safe for me.
Right.
Whereas a white child in that same neighborhood will say, this is a very safe neighborhood, and vice versa, So in those cases, you have a truth that's subjective. It can be true to the same truth. The same place can be different or wrong to one and right to the other, and both still be true. But that's not the claim that the church is making. They're not making the claim that our church is true for some people and not everyone. They said our church is true for the entire world, that everyone must accept our version of the truth, or they will not live with their family forever. They will not return to Jesus Christ. They will not be exalted. They will only receive salvation. That's the teachings of the church. You and whoever's answering this question right here is changing the church's claim in order to make it work for them.
Yeah, make it more palatable. And if anybody needs evidence that whether they say it or not, they believe that everybody, must accept this faith, baptisms for the dead, right?
Yeah.
The goal is to baptize everybody and give LDS ordinances to everybody in the world. And they will do this over objections of people, right? Like your family story, Landon, about the pastor, right? Or the priest.
The priest, yeah. My grandfather had a priest that had made a big change in his life from some of his life circumstances, and my family read about it in his journal, or it was somewhere his grandmother's journal or his journal.
Right.
They read
when he was a kid, it was like
when he was a
priest who helped.
Teenage, 18, 19-year-old, and his dad had died, and he was in a lot of trouble, and this priest helped him out. And so, my family's answer was, well, let's baptize him, the priest,
because he's
into
deceased,
Mormonism,
right? Yeah, because now that he's dead, he
so,
wants to be Mormon.
Yeah, he wants to be Mormon, and my grandfather wasn't Mormon, so but we had to baptize. They did the work for him for this priest.
And it's very inspiring to your whole family now.
So if you're saying that both can be right, then why does he have to join yours? Why don't you say subjectively, if it's right for him, I don't have to do anything? But no, he has to join your church.
Yep.
He has to have your ordinances. And you do them because you are saying that his are wrong and yours are right. That priest had certainly been baptized, but you're saying his baptism is wrong.
Right. No, it's true. It's like that binder I always talk about, Mitt Romney binder that my mom, left to me after she passed away. Here's a list of names. They have family members that don't want them baptized. As you outlive those people, go get them baptized, right? It's this very subversive. I mean, we can talk about Holocaust lists, all kinds of things. I mean, if anything says everybody's got to be a member and it's the only way, it's mass baptisms for the dead. And
all the temple work,
I should say all the temple work.
You have to have all of this stuff done,
Yep, that's exactly right. So someone else says, sure, everybody claims to have the truth. And that's why you can't just take our word for it. We believe that the only way to know the truth about God is for God to reveal it to you. Exactly. Again, which God is revealing what truth to you? In the history of the world, there were gods that were the only God for thousands of years, right? And everybody in the area knew they were the God, as much as we all know there's a heavenly Father. And then as soon as the last person that believes in him or knows him is dead or destroyed by war, whatever, that God is gone. God is very, very much connected to the human beings who are the last ones to say their name, and then they're gone.
Yeah,
obscurity.
I always make that, did God create man or did man create God?
Exactly.
Because we know that how many gods have there been, and every god has disappeared as soon as the last man who said his name dies. So that tells you that that God is not continuing. Once people stop believing in him, he ceases to exist. So that to me is proof that man created God, not the other way around. But this is ridiculous again, because the only way to know the truth about God is for God to reveal it to you. Well, you're presupposing then that there's already a God. What if there is no God? How can God reveal himself if he doesn't exist? So you're already presupposing a God in even asking God if God is there. So if God is the one who's going to tell you that God is there, but then what happens if God tells you something that's different than what he told me? Well, obviously you're not talking to God then. You're talking to Satan, who's a pseudo God who's there to trick you. He's a tricky God. So evidently, if you ask God and Satan reveals something different to you, then is asking God really the way to find out about God? If you can be tricked by somebody else that's acting like they're God?
That's a really good point, because we know Joseph Smith a couple times when the revelations didn't work out said, "Oh, I think that was Satan," right? So maybe asking a supernatural being is not the way to get your real-time accurate information.
It certainly hasn't been for all time and eternity, because like we said, billions of people, trillions of people, I don't know if we've been to trillions of people, but billions upon billions of people have heard God and had God reveal themselves to them, and yet they all have a different belief. So
that's true. And we always talk about how Mormon God did not exist anywhere until, the early 1800s, right? And then Mormon God, with all of his beliefs and quirks and edicts and things that he wanted to have happen, came into existence, right?
And now Mormon real estate God, who just likes to buy up all the world and invest in properties, but evidently he's never revealed to me a good way to make a ton of money off property investment, but he sure seems to be able to do it for himself pretty well.
You're not wrong about that. All right. I think we have another video now talking about our last quote, where it says, well, just ask God. God is going to tell you what's true. You could always trust what God tells you.
Have a very strong feeling of missing something and seeking something, and at the same time noticing that he sees the world in a different way. It really had such a profound impact on me that I started to do a lot of reading, and very quickly reading about Judaism, the pieces started to fall together where I just felt like I had found my way home. I have a very short answer to people who ask me, why on earth would you want to convert, to Orthodox Judaism? And I say, because God told me to.
Having converted not once but twice, first to Reform and then to Orthodox Judaism, Rabbi Shmuley Yanklowitz is something of an expert on conversions.
Both of my conversions were incredibly intense and transformative. And in my experience as a rabbi, this is the...
Yeah, so there you have it. That woman said, God told me I needed to join Judaism, right? Not Presbyterianism, not be a Baptist, not be a member of the LDS church. God told her that it was Judaism.
Well, and if you believe that God's the right way to decide, what God wants for you is to ask God, ask the people of Heaven's Gate how that went for him. Or
we're going to see that clip.
Or Jerry Jones, or not Jerry Jones, Jim Jones. Jerry Jones is a Cowboys guy, and he certainly isn't getting God's blessings.
Yeah. Well, and it's also one thing to say, God told me this. This is for me. But then what happens next usually is a person will say, and God has also told me what you need to do, right?
Have a very strong feeling.
That's where it can get very dangerous. So here's another person from that thread trying to answer the question. Says, I'd like to explain that discovering truth is a deeply personal process. Okay, absolutely. Akin to a scientific experiment. Each individual must undertake this experiment for themselves. No one can do it on their behalf. The experimental formula we invite others to follow is rooted in the principles taught in the restoration of the gospel. This involves learning about the prophets, priesthood authority, apostasy, dispensations, and the role of scriptures. Central to this process is the Book of Mormon. We teach that if the Book of Mormon is true, then Joseph Smith was indeed a prophet of God, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is divinely established as God's kingdom on earth. And we hear this a lot. If the Book of Mormon is true, then Joseph Smith is a prophet. And how do we know it's true? Because Joseph Smith, a prophet, brought it forth. I mean, it's an endless kind of a circle. All you could do is pray and get your feelings about it.
I 100% agree with this person that the Book of Mormon is a key. If it's true, then Joseph Smith was a prophet, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is divinely established. The problem is, it's not true.
Wow, Landon cuts right to it.
And that's not a personal process. You can do akin to a scientific experiment. You can look at the archaeology. You can look at the linguistics. You can look at the prophecies that were in it. You can look at the source material. You can look and see where did it happen? What's the geography? You can look at all of that, and it falls apart under every one of them. You can look at the flora. You can look at the fauna. You can look at the DNA. All of it shows that it's not true. So to say that discovering truth is a deeply personal process, I completely disagree with that. Akin to a scientific experiment, I don't do scientific experiments to determine how an atom can be divided. I go to school and I learn about it from people who have done the experiment. So other people can do experiments and then show me the results of their work and have it reviewed by many other people who, as a group, look at things and say, with a lot of people looking at this, we're all now coming to an agreement that this is true and this is not. So truth can certainly be found in large groups and is not a personal process. If you want to say, religious truth is personal process, I'd agree with that, because I don't believe there is such thing as religious truth. Every religion is different and everyone has what they claim is truth, and yet it's different for all of them. So that is not akin to a scientific experiment where you get the same result. A scientific experiment, you get the same result over and over and over again when you test it. Religious, you do it over and over and everyone gets a different answer. That is not truth. That, in fact, would lead you to the other. If you're getting a different result, then you have to say, none of this is working for any of us, because we're all getting different answers to it.
Right. And in fact, I would say that scientific experiments have gone a long way to sort of disprove the Book of Mormon, like you said, DNA and archaeology and all of that. So
I'm not discounting spiritual experiences.
No.
But a spiritual experience is not true or false. It's simply an experience that touched you in some way and made you think a different way, but it's not true or false.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
All right. Here's another one. You can read that one.
It's equally important to acknowledge that there is truth in all religions. However, we believe that not all religions have the God-given authority to perform saving ordinances. We claim that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints possesses the fullness of the gospel, not just fragments of truth, but the complete truth as revealed by God for our salvation and exaltation. This understanding is what sets the church apart and forms the foundation of our faith. And it's interesting that this God-given authority is the priesthood authority, which is, what Joseph Smith said he received from Peter, James, and John, and yet he can't tell us a date. And by all appearances, it seems to be backdated and brought up when they needed authority. All of a sudden, he said, "Oh, this is where I got it from." So, again, Great claim, but doesn't hold a lot of water.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. All right. Let's look at our next one. So here, let's watch another one. I just think these are so telling as we see them.
And a friend of mine who was praying for me at that moment said he sensed Mother Mary came to me, took pity on me, and asked her son to save me. And I knew after that the cancer was gone, that I should sin no more. And shortly after that, I knew I was called to join the Catholic Church, a church I'd never stepped foot in.
So we were doing a meditation, myself and 5 other friends, and all of a sudden I felt this explosion of energy go up my spine from behind. It was just like, bang. And I turned around and I saw this picture. And I said, "Who is that?" She goes, "Oh, that's Papa Jim. He's the most loving man I've ever met in my life." And so I knew that I had to find Jim Jones in People's Temple.
Finally, at one point, I surrendered. I said, "Okay, God, I want you. I want truth more than I want this book." And once I made that choice, I made that surrender, all the turmoil, all the struggle, everything lifted. I had no idea of the cross. I really had no idea what Jesus Christ had done for me. No idea of the plan of salvation. All I knew is I came face to face with God, and he told me this is what I had to do. And once I made the choice, I didn't have a qualm. I didn't have a doubt.
I surprised myself. I realized at such a young age that I was able to put together and realize that there was something more out there, that this website or this book or this topic, there's more to it. And I remember there was like a voice in my head, and I realized it was probably just the God and the Goddess or the universe trying to tell me, keep going, you're almost there, you got it, just, you've hit the mark, you need to just keep digging,
About it, and it's just been such a spiritual journey for me. I love it. I love every single bit of information I read about it. There's not one thing that I've read that I'm like, oh, that I wouldn't do that, or that's not how I feel about it. I love everything about Wicca and about witchcraft, and I really, really feel like this is my path, my calling in life.
When I went to a Kingdom Hall, I could feel the love and sincerity and warmth of everyone in there right away, and it put me at ease. Jehovah's done so much for me personally. I want to help as many people benefit from that same relationship.
Yeah, when you see them just back to back to back, all of those you could hear at an LDS testimony meeting. Every one of those stories. I knew, I surrendered, I gave it to God. I felt like I recognized it instantly. What are your thoughts on that? Just montage of joining all the different religions, Wiccan and Seventh-day Adventists and Jehovah's Witness and Catholicism.
Well, it's almost like, that when you ask God, if everyone's getting a different answer in their head and it's a voice in their head, it's almost as if it's their self answering the question, not a God answering the question, or they'd be getting the same answer.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's inside you, right? That's exactly what it is. But, you're not going to argue with the depth of sincerity of everybody, even the man who joined Jim Jones's cult. And we all know how that turned out, right? He felt that's where he belonged, and that was his path. So I don't know how you argue with that. You don't.
No, but it's really no different than, choosing a vehicle. If you go and you say, I looked at different vehicles and man, I really like the Ford. Man, they really build a good car, and I'm really into the Ford. I'm going to buy a Ford. A voice in my head said, buy the Ford, Well, that's personal preference. That's not God telling you that. And it's the same thing when you shop for religions. One of them's going to call out to you and say, this is more along the line. I looked at all of these and this one's more of what I believe than others, or this one resonated better with me. So I'm going to, and then all of a sudden you say, oh, well, something's telling me to go to this one. That must be God. Well, okay, if that's what you want to believe. But again, if the challenge is, if you want the truth, go to God, then we have to then we have to say, then whatever answer you get that you believe is from God is true. You cannot then make the argument that the feelings that they're receiving when you told them to go ask God, if he tells them this is not true, then you've got to acknowledge that that must be God telling him, as much as God's telling you it's true. If God tells me it's not true, your God is right, and God that I'm talking to is wrong, yet you're the one who told me to go ask God. You can't get around it.
No, you can't. And again, it is up to you individually, but then most people move forward very quickly from that to, and my God is telling me that you need to do this, or you need to, or there's a famous cartoon, I've talked about it before, where there's a couple on a park bench eating ice cream, and a man is standing there and he says, my religion tells me that I can not eat ice cream. And they're like, great. He goes, therefore, you cannot eat ice cream either. And that's where it just kind of necessarily goes. And I think we see a lot of examples of that politically. And yeah, it's a slippery slope.
Absolutely. Or my God has commanded me now to take over your country so that you will now believe the same God that my country believes in.
Yeah. Oh, you can frame everything through your God. Look at how the LDS Church frames everything that's ever happened in America as preparing for the restoration, right? I just saw an article today. It's the 200th birthday of the Erie Canal. And we've talked about that before, how important that was for the restoration. A lot of faithful LDS are like, yeah, it allowed saints to come and materials for the printing press of the Book of Mormon. But it also allowed all those ideas that found their way into the Book of Mormon, right? The internet of its day. Yet from the faithful side, they're trying to frame it as something, that God created to further the restoration. Just like the Declaration of Independence, just like Columbus, everything has to do with Mormonism. It's framed by the Mormon God.
Absolutely. And God, calling and saying that God is the one answering these, it's the age old, it's the authority. You have to give authority to the word. And Landon Brophy can tell you Mormonism is true. And what weight does that have to anybody?
Yeah.
But if you say God says Mormonism is true, and he told me it is, now that carries a hell of a lot more weight than Landon Brophy thinks that this is true. This is God telling Landon Brophy it's true. So now you can be assured that it's true because I'm not saying it. God's saying it.
That's right. Yep. It's out of my hands.
Out of my hands. I can't say anything else.
Out of my hands. Not me. I'm not doing it. It's not me. It's what God wants.
But in saying that, you're basically saying that I'm so much more important than you because God talks to me.
Yeah, that's true.
that I can tell you what God says, and you can't for yourself decide that, because if you say, well, I think Catholicism is true. No, God did not say that.
So, you must have misunderstood.
You must have misunderstood exactly right. God.
You must have misunderstood.
I understand him.
Yeah, that's it. All right, let's go on. Okay, here's another one. It says, I think the true church is a concept many people misunderstand. And I have to say, this portrait here, look at those eyes, right?
Yes.
There's a story behind it. This woman had a dream where Jesus appeared to her, and she woke up right away and painted him. And there he is with those piercing blue eyes that those in the Middle East are known to have.
Yes, it's Frank Sinatra, Jesus.
Kind of follow you when you move around. Anyway, okay, I think the true church is a concept many people misunderstand. The super simplified version. We are taught that there is truth everywhere, including in other religions. But, it's always a but, the LDS Church incorporates all the doctrinal truth that God has revealed. This includes the truths in other churches and also the additional truths of priesthood authority and the ordinances, temple worship, etc. Some true doctrines found in other religions simply have more detail in ours. We do not believe we have a monopoly on truth. We also believe that the LDS Church restores the organization and authority of the church Christ set up during his mortal life. Don't get us started on that. I can see why this might be hard to fully embrace if you choose to take it as a we're right, you're wrong insult to other churches, but that's a different discussion.
Wow, that is simple. That's pretty simple. She's saying I'm right and you're wrong. Because I could do a super simplified version that says the Baptists have things that we don't have, and the super simple answer is Jesus loves the Baptists better than us because they sing and praise Jesus, and they require just grace, which is far better than having to say works. So that's not a simple answer.
Well, and the problem is that, as we podcasted about over and over, the church now 40, 50 years behind is embracing all these things that we were told were not truth and did not belong, from crosses to praise to grace to all of it. They're embracing it as if it's brand new. Well, everyone else has been doing it for
We're now embracing Easter.
Everyone else has been doing this for, 200 years or more. So how does that explain, that we have more truth when we are now, no one is taking what Mormonism does and incorporating it into their churches that I know, but we have so many examples of Mormonism taking things from other churches and kind of spinning them around and incorporating them. I mean, we've posted lists, haven't we?
Yeah, I like how they say the true church is a concept many people have misunderstand. Oh, you're misunderstanding what we're saying. We're not saying we're right and you're wrong. We're saying we have everything that makes it right, so
That's
you're
right.
wrong.
So you're wrong. Yeah, but again, they can't say this as they try to align themselves with mainstream Christianity because it's so off-putting, right?
Yeah,
to join
absolutely.
a group and go, yeah, we actually talk to Jesus. We do. We talk to him. You don't. You think you do, but we do. Yeah, you're never going to be invited or given a seat at the table if you have that attitude.
Absolutely.
All right. Do you want to read this one?
My take is that God always provides opportunities for a relationship with his children through a variety of means throughout the history of the earth. He's done this through prophets, great leaders, personal revelation, trials, and many different scriptures. They all have truth. I know this because I study them, i.e. Hebrew Bible, New Testament, Book of Mormon, D&C, Pearl of Great Price, Quran, Bhagavad Gita, Apocrypha, and they can all lead to a love of God, kindness to others, and progression. We have been blessed to have an extra measure of enlightenment and closer relationship with God through the Book of Mormon, D&C, Pearl of Great Price, priesthood authority, covenant making, and prophets to lead and guide us today. Those who are ready embrace it. Again, they seem to ignore that others have things that we don't have. Meditation. Where's meditation? There's a lot of things.
We have that now. Now that's something that's been on church surveys. Do you meditate? When I was growing up, that was Eastern religion. Stay away from that.
Yeah, but
no
the church
yoga.
doesn't teach us to meditate. They may say have a yoga class for you. It's okay to have a yoga class, but they don't teach you how to meditate. They don't teach you how to become enlightened.
No.
And to reach your inner self. They don't teach praise and how to praise and sing and joy like that. They're very, other churches have a lot of things that we don't have.
And we're starting to borrow them.
We're actually starting to borrow them. Yeah. So, priesthood authority. The Catholics say we have the priesthood authority. We got it from Peter.
That's right. We can trace it right back.
We can trace it right back. Right. So what makes your priesthood any stronger than our priesthood? And your priesthood was given to you by, you claim, Peter, James, and John, yet you can't tell when, We likewise believe that our preachers received the power from God. They claim power too. So you can't make these arguments. They just don't hold water.
No, but again, this is the kind of kinder, gentler 21st century way to talk about it, that there are wonderful truths, wonderful things in all religion, but we just have a little bit extra.
Yeah.
And this was not what we grew up with. It was false traditions of the apostasy. It was, they don't know what they're doing. It's, we have the whole truth. So it's definitely morphed into, we just have the extra special sauce.
We're not saying you're not pretty. We're just saying we're prettier.
We're prettier. That's it. Mean Girls.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, here's another one.
Allah help me, guide me to the truth. If you guide me to the truth, I'll never leave it. And I knew in my heart, Allah was telling me in my heart that Islam, this is true, you know. And I knew right there it's the correct religion.
And at that point, I had this feeling of just peace. Just that's how I describe it, like peace with everywhere within me, the outside. It gets me a bit now, but I had this. It was a completely different feeling for me, and it's changed my life since that day, and I've never looked back since.
I started praying to find the truth. It didn't take a long time to find out that Islam is the truth and that there can't be any other religion in the world.
I said, please, God, you are the one who listens, who always listens. Please, who do I have to follow to come to you direct? Christianity or the Muslims? I was 100% sure that God has answered my question. What is the right way? The only right way to come to God is...
Yep. Again, absolutely sure of their testimonies. They all have a conversion story, much like anybody who converts to the LDS church, or, you know, maybe has been in it, but then has had that moment where they recommit. So there's no difference.
Yeah. And it always amazes me, you know, Islam is the true religion, yet Islam didn't even exist until, you know, what, 1800 years ago. Mm-hmm. What was the true religion prior to that? Because there wasn't Islam prior to that. So same thing can be said of Christianity. There was no Christianity 2,000 years ago. Oh, well, so we have to say Judaism was true up until that point. And then, you know, there always has to be, if there's one true religion, it should go straight through. And of course, the LDS churches tried to do that and say, oh, that church was originally established with Adam, and it went all the way through Judaism, and then to Christianity, and then to Mormonism. You always got to tie it back, because you can't explain how your religion just popped out of nowhere, and yet it's the true religion. So you have to tie it back to some sort of an ancient religion so that you can make that argument.
Yeah, but even so, it's not ancient enough. I mean, as we know, people have been on the planet for eons of time, right? And they had gods and they had rituals, and we know nothing of them, right? But it should be the same God, right? If everyone's saying this is the true God, the only God. So we know nothing of that. We're kind of landlocked by recorded history.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's all they can go back to. So that's what they point to. But, you know, the need to go back anciently is a requirement, because people can't make the argument that a church that sprung up in 1830 is the true church throughout all time, because what happened to everyone before that? So they have to tie it into ancient, you know, and Islam is, you know, a fairly ancient religion, but not ancient enough.
Not ancient enough. That's it. Which is why I always say, do Neanderthals and Denisovians need their temple work done? They do. They're creatures and people of the earth. So how do we explain that? Right? Yeah,
it's the age-old answer. It goes back to, you know, philosophical. Man asks a question, religion tries to come up with an answer and say, this is how it's always been. Yep, so. That's exactly right. And it's interesting because just recently Elder Gong went to a summit.
Guide me to the truth.
I was trying to change that. Sorry.
I know. Just recently, Elder Gong went to a summit at the Vatican where religious leaders gathered to talk about AI and the future of AI and religion, right? And it's, I don't know, it's again a double-edged sword. I'll use that word again, because they can see the benefit of it. You know, it helps with all kinds of different things, but they also are afraid of it because it can actually take over actually what, you know, pastoral care and preachers and church leaders. And so they've started a task force to see if they can help guide and mold and shape the companies that are creating AI. So the very same thing again, religion wants to, you know, have a very heavy hand in how the human race moves forward and how to shape it.
Couldn't God just shape AI to be what he wants it to be, and then the entire world gets what he wants? It's revelate. If we ask God for revelation, why can't he use AI and everyone gets the same answer no matter what they ask? God could do that.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he?
No, I mean, it's really interesting to watch, and the LDS Church has been speaking up about AI a lot, like in the last couple years. And I think the first thing they're concerned about is people turning to AI instead of church leaders, right? For advice and care, pastoral care, things like that. And the other is just how AI represents religions and churches, because it's going to tell you right there everything that's out there on it, right? And they want to control that. They want to control and make sure that AI represents them correctly, whatever that means.
They want the truth, right?
The truth. Yeah. So I don't know, and they all say AI can't be your God, right? It can't be your God. Isn't that an interesting concept when you discuss what a God is?
Even though to get answers from a God, I need to pray and wonder
ask.
if I got an answer, whereas AI, I can just speak into my phone and that's 80% correct, which has a better return rate than prayer does. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to watch going forward, but it's certainly causing a stir to the point where Elder Gong went to a huge summit at the Vatican to talk about this. So religions are thinking about it. All right, let's read this one. You can read it.
All truth can be circumcised into one whole. In this way, many people around the world have truth. There are elements of Buddhism, which I've studied extensively, that are true. Truth harmonizes with the gospel, so people can have true witnesses that their beliefs are true. We seek to add to it and expand upon it. I had a very interesting experience in my mission. I served in a very Catholic country, very, very, very. We were often invited to attend Mass. I actually loved going to Mass. I did feel the Spirit there. What was I feeling? Well, they were worshiping Jesus Christ. That harmonizes and resonates with what is true. I think other people feel that too. It doesn't mean one is right and one is wrong. They both overlap with the truth. If there was a Venn diagram of the truth, many other religions and philosophies would intersect and overlap with the gospel truth. I think we limit ourselves when we get prescriptive with telling people we have the truth. That's kind of interesting because Buddhism does not talk about Jesus Christ, yet they felt good about Buddhism. So they're picking and choosing and saying whatever here agrees with what I already believe, I'll accept.
Yep, that's it. And they obviously didn't get the memo about horror of the earth. I'm guessing this is a younger person, right? So
yeah.
They didn't, it's all or nothing. At least that's what it was. And it's not that way now. This Venn diagram idea of whatever, resonates with me, that means it's closer to Mormonism's ideals and I can find it other places. So
yeah, in this case, you'd have to drive Mormonism here and all the others would have little overlapping, but the centerpiece is always Mormonism.
Yes.
So you are saying that we're the only ones with truth. If you're saying you only have pieces, I'm the only one that has everything, you are saying you're the only one with truth.
Yep. I think that's the whole point of this podcast. They are still saying it. They're just not saying
They're
it
saying
like
it
they used
differently.
Yeah.
They're saying it differently. Yep.
In a more politically correct, religiously correct way, right? All right, let's see what else. Yeah, Buddhism was a big no-no when I was growing up.
Yeah.
That was, again, an evil Eastern. You do not go near any of those concepts. So this person says, to me, it's logical. It makes sense. But ultimately, it's a choice. I choose to believe this because it makes the most sense to me and because it's the most beautiful and logical belief system I've ever seen. Therefore, I choose it. And you hear this a lot. Choose to believe. They say that. Just choose. Say, I believe. And there it is. That's all you need to do. Just choose it.
And I usually when you hear somebody say this, they were born into it. It just makes the most logical sense to me because I've studied all the other religions thoroughly. Usually they either were born into it or it's really the only one they've studied because there's a lot of people who are going to say this just doesn't make any sense to me. There's billions of more who say that. So again, it's a choice. Well, choice isn't truth. Just because you made a choice doesn't make it true. It makes it your choice.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. And sometimes I think about when the time of life when people convert, like I think about my mom who converted when she was a college student, alone, in a graduate program in another country. You know, she was kind of isolated, met a Mormon family who was very kind to her, took her in, you know, introduced her to the missionaries. It's kind of those, and if you listen to some of these stories that we're watching on the videos, it's people that, you know, they're at a crossroads or a moment, right? And they're looking for something. And then whatever they happen to fall into, right? There it is. And it just makes sense to them, especially if there's somebody that's kind of shepherding you through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just because something's logical also doesn't mean it's true. There's plenty of times where you think, oh, this makes sense. And then when you start digging into it, you go, I guess I was wrong. You know, it made sense at the time, but I was wrong. So.
Well, and that's what we basically said as post-Mormons. You know, we were in it for the decades that we were. It made sense to us at certain times more than others. It worked for us, whatever reason we stayed. And then there's a point where it just does not make sense anymore and does not work.
Well, to me, it's still logical. I can still see the logic of Mormonism. And I can say, well, I can understand the logic of, you know, that you can become a god and you can continue to, that's great logic. The problem is when I looked underneath the curtain or pulled back the curtain, it simply wasn't true. Just because it was logical didn't mean it wasn't that it was true.
Yeah, which is why you hear so many people on the post side saying, I wish it was true. I wish it was beautiful. You know, it was logical. I wish, but it simply isn't.
And Catholicism is logical to Catholics and you know, Baptists, that's logical to people who are Baptists, who grew up in that faith tradition.
And if LDS is logical to them, and Branch Davidians, that was logical to them to the point where they were destroyed. And, you know, it's all logical. It all makes sense.
To a Baptist, it's logical that grace is what saves me because Jesus loves me so much that he doesn't want me to burn forever. So he's been redeemed and saves me. To them, that you have to do temple work and you have to not drink coffee and you have to do all of that. And God selectively chooses who he lets in is not logical to them.
No.
So again, logic is based on your own belief system.
I kind of feel like when you put it that way, the idea of the second anointing, if more religions knew about that, I think they'd be kind of horrified by that. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Elite, wealthy, certain people get certain privileges to go straight to heaven, kind of a thing.
Well, not just other
that whole concept.
Not just other churches. People in LDS church would be horrified. That's why they don't teach it or tell you about it, because we'd say that's not right. That's not what we learned. We learned you had to go endure to the end. That you can always make a mistake that you'd have to be forgiven for and repent of.
No. Yeah, it really is a concept that's extremely disturbing when you think about it. And I wish it had more, you know, airtime. I wish more people knew about it. Let's see, this person says definitionally, you would need to find out what they mean by true, talking about the investigators. If they mean the church that Christ set up on the earth and that we are the same church, then I would explain about the priesthood authority and the apostasy and say, yes, we do believe we are God's restored church. I would like to note here that most churches don't actually make the claim that they are Jesus's church. The Catholics do, and there are about 5 others that do, but most churches teach that they are congregations of people who are trying to follow Jesus, not that they are directly Jesus's church. That's a big difference. Yeah, why do you think they don't teach they are Jesus's church?
I'm laughing about this because what he described, you know, most churches teach that they are congregations of people who are trying to follow Jesus. That was the church Jesus set up.
That
he didn't set up a church. He had believers and followers who were Christians who followed his teachings. He didn't set up a church that built temples, that did baptisms for the dead, none of that was happening when Jesus was here. None of that happened in the Catholic Church. Christians never did any of that.
Nope.
They were simply congregations that were trying to follow the philosophical teachings of Jesus. And yet he's going and saying, well, you got to ask them what they mean by true. What they mean by true, I don't think most people are saying you're the true church or not the true church. It's the LDS church that's saying we are the true church. So what do you mean by you're the true church? Not what does someone else mean by are you the true church? But yeah, to say that we're the restored church that Jesus set up, Jesus did not set up a church. He had followers, and those followers actually set up multiple churches that were all different.
Doing different things. Some
Gnostics.
Batshit crazy stuff.
Yeah, some really crazy
Read
stuff.
Lost Christianities by Bart Ehrman if you want to see the wide variety of these Christian congregations and what they were doing and what they believed. Goodness.
And that's why in the Bible they're saying, oh, there's apostles that are false apostles going around. Well, who are these? These were other people who these were other Christians who believed differently.
Yep.
Because they were a different congregation. And what did you have? You had the Romans. You had the Hebrews. The books are being written. The books are being written to the different churches. The Corinthians. You had churches in all these different locations. Those are congregations of people, and that's what they had. They did not have the church as it's set up today. Nothing like it existed.
Yep. No, Lost Christianities was extremely eye-opening.
Yeah, I think there's even a Mormon book that's come out about the early Christians saying the same thing. So
yeah, I think so too. All right, let's see another one of these, couple of these here.
Both my parents, before their trek, actually made a prayer to Buddha, just to keep their family safe and to make sure that they were successful in their escape, which I think gave them strength and courage to move forward and to really just find a better life for their family.
He's a bringer of truth. I feel that he is the Messiah. He's the messenger of God's truth to help us wake up.
Yes, he is. He is Jesus. And you've just discovered that?
I've only discovered that, yes. And since I've been on this path through AJ's teachings, that's how we come to God.
I have memories of being at the crucifixion. Remember being there and just the intense feeling of my soulmate, someone I feel very connected to, suffering immensely. Although I feel I suffered more than he did. But just because of the development in love that he had at that time. But for myself, it was excruciating to watch basically the annihilation of the person that I love the most.
Whenever I think about him now, I just cry. I'm starting to have a soul, like an emotional realization of who he is. It's overwhelming because I know that only God can save me, but at the moment I feel that he's saved me through his teachings and his truth and love that I haven't experienced through anyone else.
Of course, there are times when
Whew. Yeah, intense emotion, real emotion from people, breaking their own hearts. What are you going to say,
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're kind of beating a dead horse at this point that people have spiritual feelings about a lot of different people and a lot of different faith systems and a lot of different beliefs. So it's very hard to say that that God will tell you the truth when all of these people are getting different answers.
Yeah, I think so. All right, let's see another comment answering that question. If they mean, how do we know if Joseph Smith was lying? That's an interesting way to interpret it. I would point at the fruits of Joseph's work. Look at the Book of Mormon and how many things in it correlate with archaeology, discoveries that have been found in the past 100 years, such as the Dead Sea Scrolls or other apocryphal writings. I would point to Old Testament prophecy of the latter days. I would look at doctrine listed in the Book of Mormon and help them see how it clarifies, expounds, and draw into alignment the different teachings in the Bible that can sometimes be confusing. So they're just saying Mormonism ties everything up in a nice bow, all of it, right? It has it all.
With archaeology discoveries. I'd love to see what those are, but to see if he was lying, let's look at the fruits of his work. So, well, let's look at the work of the fruits of the Catholics' work. A lot of Christian beliefs of, do unto others and turn have made their way into Western civilization because of the Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church must be true, because we've gotten much of our civilization have come from their work and their teachings.
Yeah.
That's the argument you have to make. Again, this is a ridiculous, and I'd like to know how the Book of Mormon aligns different teachings in the Bible. The Book of Mormon, there's no new teachings in the Book of Mormon that aren't in the Bible. Those all come through Joseph Smith's revelations, not through the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon does not teach about the temple endowment, baptisms for the dead, that you'll get a planet. None of those uniquely Mormon things are in the Book of Mormon. In fact, we get Trinitarianism. We get, we get very many of the same problems. Infant baptism, all of those things. That infant baptism was not in the Bible. That was a question came up years later. So.
Yep. All right, let's see. Okay. You can go ahead and read that one.
Many churches have part of the truth as well. I don't feel like I hear other denominations acknowledge that often, at least in my own experience where I attended Methodist and Baptist churches prior to joining Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We just know that we have the fullness of the gospel along with the priesthood authority to administer the ordinances necessary for salvation and exaltation. I think other denominations don't acknowledge it because they don't feel there's a need for all of that. That you don't have to have these things that the church says you have to have. So why would they acknowledge that?
Yeah, and I think they do think when they give someone a blessing or say a prayer with someone that, it's going to directly to God. It doesn't have to have authority or something like that, right? You're just talking to God and asking for God's blessing on you, God's grace. There doesn't have to be
when they kneel and pray for a sick friend, they believe that God is going to bless that sick friend as much as you believe that laying hands on with oil is going to help that person.
Yep, that's exactly right. And it's less complicated, right? How many of you have been in a scenario where somebody needed a blessing and you couldn't find the oil and you're running around? I mean, in other churches, you simply pray with someone. And you're right. They believe it as much as we do.
And in other churches, I, as an LDS person, could go in and pray with them if they're sick and say, I want to say a prayer for you. And they would believe that would carry as much weight. Whereas an LDS person, it's like, no, I need the elders to come in with the oil. That's the only way I'm going to get a blessing. Yeah, you can say, I've had plenty of friends that came in that said a prayer for me. Well, then why'd you call the elders if you thought that prayer was going to work? You call the elders because you think you have to have that consecrated oil.
Right. And also not only that, but there's a worthiness component, right?
Yeah.
How many people say, that blessing didn't work because it turned out one of the elders wasn't worthy? You're judged, your worthiness is judged, and then you can, plead with God on someone's behalf, right? That isn't how it works. You just, as a human being, pray with another human being, ask God, and that's all. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that.
And then you also have to have the faith not to be healed in Mormonism.
Well, and that's new too. When we were growing up, a priesthood blessing really meant that you could experience a miraculous healing. I had that in my family where, I've talked before about my mom that was bedridden through most of my childhood. And, a lot of it was psychosomatic. But when I was a teenager, she went and had a blessing from a general authority. And, she was healed for a while, right? Got up out of her sick bed. And it was a pretty amazing story in the ward. But again, that's just sort of mentally saying, oh, look, it's a placebo effect kind of a thing. But you can get that just as much from another blessing from another church or a prayer circle for you or any of that. It's all kind of has that mental component to it.
Yep. You can buy a hanky that's been blessed by somebody and believe that that's going to heal you.
Yep. Or the tear of Jesus or the splinter of the cross. And I think it works, because you can talk yourself into anything.
Absolutely.
All right, let's watch this one. I think we're getting toward the end here.
And a friend of mine who was praying for me at that moment said he sensed Mother Mary.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, I think I put that one in twice. So here's this one. You can read this one, Landon.
Hold up a physical copy of the Book of Mormon. Describe how by studying both the book and the history of how it came about, the only explanation is that God brought it about. I think there's a few other explanations as well.
Might be a few others, but this is just that very pure and simple faith. And it's all about a book, right? No other religion really has a book like that. I mean, they have the Bible that, of course, is always there, but this is the book. This is the only book. And you see the missionaries, oh my gosh, they're doing that exactly. Holding the Book of Mormon up. This is it. The only explanation. Holland says that all the time, right?
That's right. And I think there's plenty of, no book has ever been written that you can't explain,
Yep. Yep. No book like this. Let's see. Okay. Echoing the general vibe in the comments here, I'm on a similar path and I don't believe in the truth claims of the church either. However, like you, I've seen incredible fruits from the church and have become much more Christ-like through his teachings. I'm sure there are other churches or paths that would have led me to a similar spot, but I was born in the church. The question I ask myself now is, why wouldn't I be a Mormon? A large part of my social and family circles are a part of this culture. I have no reason to leave it. I've spent a lot of time studying the temple interview questions to make sure that I can answer them honestly. I don't feel like I have to lie at all to be an active, non-believing member of the church. I think there are more people like this than we know.
I think
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just here, works for me, hasn't really hurt me yet or family members. And so here I am. There's more reasons to stay than there are to go. And that's a choice. There you go.
You're a social Mormon.
You're a social Mormon.
That's what you are. And if that's fine. And if you can say I'm a better person for it and whatnot, but you also have to stand back then and say, when my church's teachings harm somebody, I have to then stand up for those other people and say this is wrong because I don't believe that your truth claims. But again, it's kind of hard. I went down this road when I was leaving. I said, well, I turned out pretty good. My family's good. But then I realized, but if what they're saying is true is not true, then how can I say that I'm a better person because I followed something that was a lie? Yeah. To me, it didn't work. You can't say, oh, well, be honest in all your dealings with your fellow beings and you'll be a good person. Yet the organization that's teaching you that is lying to you. That's problematic. So telling the truth doesn't necessarily. You should tell lies to people to make them feel as good as you can make them feel. And as long as you're telling lies that make people feel good, that's okay. It brings up a lot of problems. But I get what this person's saying.
Yep.
And if that's what you want to do, absolutely, no problem with it. But don't let it hurt someone else, and don't tell other people that they have to follow this same path simply because it's your social circle and your way that you feel best about yourself.
Yeah, I think this is one of the more honest answers, right?
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, it really was. All right. Let's see. This one says, I'm not sure why some people ask seemingly in sincerity and receive different answers, right, from us.
Yeah.
And that's speaking exactly to the videos that we're watching. Why are people getting the answer to join Buddhism or Jim Jones or Heaven's Gate or Catholicism when they're asking? As some others have said, the Spirit prepares the way and we just extend invitations. When you think about it from that perspective, it's much easier to not take it personally when someone doesn't want to use their agency to accept the gospel. So this person can't really understand why God gives different answers, but just don't take it personally. You know, they're on a different journey, different path.
I guess so. But again, there's a little cognitive dissonance that you've been told, ask God and he'll give you the answer. But then you say, well, he gave you a different answer. And well, they just used their agency and chose not to listen when they believed that they were following and doing exactly what God commanded them by asking which one was true. And if they're told it's not, they are following God. How can they be punished for doing exactly what God said and not getting the result that God promised?
Yep, I think that's exactly right. And I keep thinking I didn't serve a mission, but you did. I feel like most missionaries, or maybe missionaries in the past, really felt that it was a message that people wanted to hear and needed to hear, and the Spirit would confirm to them that it was, you know, it was real. So it must be shocking to a missionary to go to door after door and have people say, no, you know, I don't believe what you're saying, or I'm doing something else.
Well, in the MTC, you practice this over and over and over again, and everyone always ends up joining in the MTC when you're role playing, you know, and you're being told this, and then it's amazing. The first day out in the field, you go and you knock doors and you knock doors and you knock for weeks, and nobody wants to hear what you have to say. It becomes pretty evident overnight that no, everyone does not want this. This product does not sell itself. That's
just
for sure.
Opposition, I guess, right? And the adversary and Satan, and of course, then it makes you double down and, you know, immerse yourself in the safety of the group that believes what you believe, so that you can face this external world.
You must not be doing something right to bring the Spirit. Therefore, you need to double down and dig deeper and believe deeper in this, because you're not getting the others to believe it.
Yeah.
Which is where it becomes destructive. You know, like that other person said, that's great. But when you send an 18-year-old kid out on a mission who doesn't believe this, but he goes because of the social pressure, there's a lot of mind games that get played there when he's going, I don't believe this, yet I'm out here telling people I believe something I don't want to be here, and yet my family, I have to do it. That's where I've got a problem with it.
Yeah, me too. There's a lot of damage that occurs there. All right, let's see.
Strong. I think when I was 14 and prayed about the Book of Mormon, before I could even get the words out, I just felt the Spirit in my heart just really strong, and I just felt so filled with light. Not everything is like that, but as I read the scriptures or as I hear truths at church, then it's confirmed to me in my heart that these things are true, and so your testimony just grows little by little.
And so like I'm reading through the Book of Mormon, and like boom, you get like a aha. The thought that these things are true comes to your mind. Peace, joy, overwhelming happiness, and it's just kind of like impressed on your soul. And then the cool thing is, it's not something that happens once, it's something that happens over and over again.
Asking God. When I went home that night, I opened up the Book of Mormon and I started reading it, and I just had this warm feeling come over me that I knew was from God, confirming that the Book of Mormon really is true and that it's really his work. And because of that, I know that the LDS Church, or the Mormon Church, is the true Church of God. It's
no. See, everybody would be on board with those, right? They got the right answer.
Yeah, they have the right answer for sure. It's just funny as I look at that, and whenever you hear anyone say that, I'm reading it and I know these things are true. They never say specifically what's true.
No, but things.
These things, everything in the book is true. What specifically was true? What specifically that you were reading in the Book of Mormon made you say, oh, this is something that's new to me and that I can't live without, because I can't think of many things in the Book of Mormon that are itself true, because the stories we know were not true and didn't happen. So the lessons learned are true. What lessons? What specifically lesson are you talking about? That no one ever says that. They always just say, "Oh, I know these things are true. These things are true." I never hear anyone specify what those things are.
Name three of the things.
Yeah.
What are the three things?
Name the three things out of the Book of Mormon that you know are true.
Yeah, that's funny. Is it your turn or my turn? I can't remember.
I can read it.
Okay.
TLDR, a solid argument from logic may just be impossible for the existence of God, let alone the validity of our specific religion. At some point, evidence is required to make a sound conclusion. It's therefore a good thing the church focuses on evidence-based testimonies via spiritual confirmation rather than purely hope or a blind faith. Don't know many evidence-based testimonies or what they're talking about there.
Seems like an oxymoron, doesn't it? Right?
Yeah.
A testimony is very subjective.
Yeah. If it's evidence-based, you don't really need a spiritual confirmation. The evidence has laid it out for you, but okay, whatever.
Well, feelings are evidence in a lot of ways because that's all you have. So why do you think they say over and over, I know the church is true. I know the church is true. Being in primary for decades, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. I know the church is true. I know. What does that even mean? And that's what we're trying to discuss here. But people say it. They're told to say it. They're told to repeat it. It's a mantra, and they don't know why or how, but it is.
I mean, we don't repeat over and over, I know gravity is real. I know gravity is real.
Exactly.
I know gravity is real, to convince ourselves that gravity is real. But some reason we have to do that with church.
Right. Here's a good one. What matters is what you think is the truth, not what others think is true. You cannot determine for others what truth is. You can only decide for yourself what truth is. Other religions do have truth. That's what makes finding the truth so difficult. Shards of it can be found in every religion. That's why we focus so much on missionary work. We recognize we don't have all the truth. We just feel like we have most of the truth.
Wow, these are eye-opening here.
They are. That's why I had to gather
I thought
them.
we did have all the truth, all the necessary truth to save people, but now we only have most of it. So
yeah, and if I knew the ages of these posters, I guarantee you it's probably divided up by age.
Yeah,
millennials, younger, they're like, let's all get along. We're all good. People of our generation, no, we have the truth. We have all the truth.
And again, it doesn't matter what is actually true. It's only what you think is true.
Exactly. But you can create your own reality. That's all it is. You absolutely can. I could choose to believe in Santa Claus. I know that's always the example, but I could live in that reality. I could decorate my house like the North Pole every day and believe in Santa Claus and just make that choice and maybe be happy. I don't know. If you don't want to deal with reality, you can do that.
Yeah, I know very few people, though, who can successfully believe in Santa once it's been exposed, and it's the same way with the church. It's very hard to continue to believe it's true once you've been exposed to its untruths.
Yeah, but there are all kinds of different reasons to go back or to continue, like that other post showed. Lots of different reasons, cultural reasons, family reasons, without thinking that there is truth.
Do we have more of these?
I think we do.
Every day I studied, it was like drinking from the cup of knowledge, and I just became more powerful as a spiritual being.
I just have amazing knowledge and a viewpoint that is 360 degrees, and it just stretches from here to eternity.
I have a firm foundation that I don't waver from because I know exactly what I know.
You just sit there with that and go, I am one of the most lucky, fortunate beings in the entire universe.
I feel good. There's nothing like dynamics. It works, period. It really will change your life, and it will make the lives of those around you that much better.
It's extraordinary.
After I got all the physical stuff handled, then I still had all this worry and concern with it, and so I went and I got Dianetics to address it. It's not a problem anymore. There's no pain, I'm not concerned about it. I play basketball all the time, I run. I mean, it's almost as if nothing ever happened. It is because of Dianetics. And
wow, Scientology. And they don't even have a supreme being.
No.
And they are a newer religion, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they only became a religion for tax shelter purposes, right? They really fought that really hard decades ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it worked for Tom Cruise. So
it worked for Tom Cruise. Well, we have been to, where is it? Clearwater? Is that what it's called in Florida?
Yeah, Clearwater, Florida.
Yeah, we have been there to one of the headquarters there. And it was just like Temple Square. Everybody was wearing sort of a suit, a military kind of, like in the Navy kind of a suit, right? And walking around. And
they were all dressed the same. Yeah. And I remember thinking, wow, this looks really cultish. And then I said, this must be what people who come to Salt Lake think.
I think it gave us a window on that, honestly, because Salt Lake, we can't see it through that lens. But when you go to Clearwater, you see that. Yeah. And I remember we went into one of the education centers, a really nice building, lots of gold furnishings. I don't know what it is about LDS temples and Scientology buildings, but they all use gold. And we talked to a girl there who was a guide. And I remember I said, oh, were you raised in Scientology? She said, no, that's not how it works. Both of my parents were Scientologists. And then I chose to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Okay.
There is no supreme being. There is the monetary component where you pay quite a bit of your money there. But it also has an outer space.
Probably like 10% of your income or so.
Yeah, more than that. It has an outer space component. And it has a 1950s component because once you get up through all the ladders and the learning, God, not God, but whatever it is, the supreme planet is some kind of planet that's 1950s. So it's all kind of rooted in the same thing.
Well, they had nice cars, so.
They do. But they also have the need to park their money somewhere. And so they have empty buildings all over the world. It's a similar trajectory, I think.
Yeah.
And interesting. Okay. Unlike practically all the other choices, we don't teach by extensive spiritual proof. Referenced, yes, but more by explanation. When we put the
fix
proof,
that, you said spiritual proof. We don't teach by extensive scriptural proof.
Oh, scriptural proof. Sorry, there was the glare. Scriptural. Okay, so we don't use the scriptures to teach. Referenced, yes, but more by explanation. We then put the proof part right back in their lap, admonishing them to ask God. Our confidence is that if you are asking with intent to receive and follow, then God will ratify. Maybe that sounds like a cop-out if they don't get an answer, but it matches our concepts for communication. We need to essentially resonate with God for his power and influence to flow. If in our heart of hearts, no way are we going to follow, I think God can't or won't force the communication. So, exactly what all these videos are showing. You got to tell the people to ask God, and they're going to get the answer. And they're going to resonate with God. But as we see here, so many different answers. And this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as the answers that you could get for a deity or a belief system.
I like this. We don't teach by extensive scriptural proof because we really don't know our scriptures very well.
That's true.
We don't use the Bible. And if we did, they'd be able to easily show that most of the stuff we believe in is not referenced in the Bible and is not covered in the Bible. So we're just going to keep it generic and tell them to ask God. And if he tells them it's okay, but we don't even understand why God doesn't always answer them. But we stay away from scriptural proof. We just want you to hear what we say and have God ratify it.
Yep. And that's it. Can't argue with personal revelation. All right. Go ahead and read this one.
Because we are the only ones with the Book of Mormon. Not true.
Not true. Yeah, exactly. How many splinter groups have the Book of Mormon? We'll have to ask Steve Pinecker, but I think there's like at least 100.
Yep. The FL. So Warren Jeffs must be true because he has the Book of Mormon as well.
Yep.
Because we're the only ones with the Book of Mormon. God has witnessed to me that the Book of Mormon is true, that it is the word of God. Therefore, Joseph Smith was a prophet. The church he established is true because the Lord testifies it is through his prophet, the only true and living church upon the face of the whole earth, with which I, the Lord, am well pleased, speaking unto the church collectively and not individually. Joseph Smith is a prophet because the Lord, speaking through Joseph Smith, said that he was a prophet.
Yeah, there might be
Beautiful.
some problems with that, but if it
Beautiful
works for
logic.
you, it works for you.
It works.
Oh my gosh, I'm coughing too hard. I'm going to have you read this.
I can only answer for me, as the answer to this is by nature personal. Personally, I acknowledge that I don't actually know in the strictest sense of the word. However, I believe and I have faith, that is, trust that the restored gospel is the truth. For me, much of the gospel makes sense, logically too. No other Christian religion can adequately address the so-called problem of evil because of their belief of the nature of God. Ultimately, we're not trying to convince people the church is true. We're trying to persuade them to actively engage with the things that will invite the testimony of the Holy Ghost that it's true so they can know for themselves. And that's what I would tell people when they ask. I don't want to convince you that our message is true. I want the Holy Spirit to do that. I promise that if you study our teachings with an open mind and pray about it with an open heart, believing God will answer you and with real intent to follow through with the answer, then I trust that you will receive the same answer I got when I prayed, that it's true. And remember, it's okay if they don't. The missionaries aren't there to drag people to baptism. They aren't even there to prepare people for baptism. They're there to find and teach those whom God, through us, the local members, have already prepared. Wow. A lot of caveats there.
Yeah.
I promise that if you study with an open mind,
Yeah.
if you study it and you come up with a different conclusion, you didn't have an open mind. And that if you pray about it with an open heart, because if you don't get the same answer as us, then you clearly didn't have an open heart. Believing God will answer. You can't go, if you prayed and you didn't get the answer, then you probably didn't really pray believing. You can see how they put a lot of caveats on how you get answers.
Yeah, but again, it's all, and still it's a kinder, softer way to say it than I think we were raised with, just that it's okay. A lot of people probably won't believe, and that's all right. It's just God, the people are led to us. It's really okay. That was not what we were raised with. It's like you drag your neighbors to your house for a film strip and you invite them. Oh my gosh, I've talked about it before. My parents were those people.
And if they reject it, they're going to hell.
Yeah. Or if, like my neighbors, they get baptized and then they attend once or twice and go, what the hell? And never go back. And we lose the friendship, right? I mean, even as a little kid, I knew it was awkward. I just knew it. I just hated it when my parents would say, the so-and-so's over, to show them man's search for happiness. I knew it. I just knew there was something weird about it. And I felt so awkward about it the whole time. I liked it because my mom would make like a special dessert. That was fun. But I just always knew it, that it was just not what you did.
It's like inviting them over to learn about Amway.
Yeah, that's exactly it. There could have been a whiteboard there. And my parents, they'd rent the projector from the meeting house library, right? And every Sunday when I'd see them bringing the projector home, I'd go, oh, who's coming over? I hope it's not somebody from my grade. It's so awkward. Oh my gosh, I know most of you can't relate to my childhood at all, but that's what it was. And here's the best one of all, because I prayed about it. There you go. And again, it's probably the most valid answer. It's true to me because I prayed about it and I got the answer, just like the Buddhist person who converted to Judaism, Catholicism, Amway. No, that wasn't one. Scientology, all of it, right? I prayed about it and it's true.
I always wonder, as an atheist, if you pray about it, how are you going to get an answer if there really was no God? All this praying would do nothing.
Well, by not getting an answer, that's your answer as an atheist. I actually had a friend who told me on his mission, he prayed to get a confirmation that the Book of Mormon was not true because he felt like it wasn't. And so he did pray. And he said, I totally got such a peaceful feeling. And I knew it wasn't real. I knew it was made up. I knew it wasn't true. But he had to finish his mission and stayed in for several years afterwards. Yeah. But he used the formula, ask a higher power, which is actually just asking yourself, maybe meditation, taking a moment to work on something and go, yeah, that makes sense to me, right? It's kind of all us.
But again, this presupposes a God. You have to already believe in a God to pray to a God, because who else are you praying to if you don't know who God is?
Yep.
And how do you know how to address him, or,
Yep.
you know, even why you look up? What if God's down? What if, you know, if you don't know anything already, God, how is God going to make himself known to someone who doesn't know about him to begin with?
No, and that's true. And again, I think some people just inherently know that that's not real. I always knew there wasn't anybody there. My family was one of those that would pray about 7 times a day. You wake up for personal prayers, you have family prayers, then you have prayers on your breakfast, then you pray on your lunch, then you pray on your dinner, you have family night prayer, personal prayer, family prayer.
Prayer before a BYU football game.
Yeah,
prayer.
I was usually praying every day, and I'm talking kneeling down. We were the family that turned your chairs outward, like so the seat was backwards, so you knelt down at the dinner table and then turned them around. But I never felt there was anybody listening. I always knew it was a ridiculous exercise, and I always felt so uncomfortable. I was not a magical thinker. That's all I can say. So I admire people that can, you know, get comfort, peace, confirmation, answers. But that's not how it is for everybody. And as we see from these videos, those answers, peace and confirmation, can come from a lot of different places and arrive at a lot of different conclusions.
I would like to point out here, though, that I can just substitute one word and it still makes sense because I thought about it.
Exactly. Yep. That's a very good point.
No.
Yep, that's exactly it. So, all right. I think this might be our last one.
Is this the last?
I think it might be.
And I knew, my soul knew that it had what I'd been searching for a long time, and I knew it even before I read it. When I got those statements, I just couldn't stop reading because I knew. And ever since I've been in the class, there's never been a doubt.
Like when I first met them, I knew that what they had to say was true. It wasn't something they said, it was something that I knew inside me. I felt it was like a recognition.
It was instant recognition for me, and there was never a doubt in my mind. I just wish that people out there could understand how much we feel and know this is real. This is not a fantasy. I know. I didn't have to believe. I knew.
You cannot reason people out of a position that they did not reason themselves into. Yep. And again, of course, that's Heaven's Gate. And that's probably one of the most notable examples. I believe that all those people interviewed there were among the ones that took their own lives, but they have a testimony. They believe it's true. They know it's real. They've had a confirmation. They prayed about it. They thought about it. And you know, the kinds of things that you can be led to do. So Ricky Gervais, he's also awesome. He says, there have been nearly 3,000 gods so far, but only yours actually exists. The others are silly, made up nonsense, but not yours. Yours is real.
Couldn't agree more.
Yep. He's very no nonsense. If you don't follow him, you should. He likes to argue with people, but he just has such a great way to say. He always says, you know, I just simply believe in, you know, like what does he say? One less God than you do, or you know, you believe in one more God than, you know, I don't believe in. So, because like he said, 3,000 gods in the world who are worshipped as fervently as people worship God now, whatever we would call Heavenly Father, Jesus, and they've all come and gone, right? With the last person to say their name. So.
That's interesting. If there's is God and Jesus two gods or one God? I really can't even figure that part out.
No, Mormons definitely, yeah. And we were talking about this the other day, how other religions say you don't worship the right Jesus. And that is very accurate because when they say Jesus, they also mean God, right? When we say Jesus, we mean our brother. So there's a lot of distinction, not our father. Exactly. So yeah, we're polytheists. Only way to look at it. So, all right. Do we have one more, I think, as we wrap up here? There we go. Okay. Do you want to read this? Here's another one.
Next time someone tells me they believe in God, I'll say, oh, which one? Zeus, Hades, Jupiter, Mars, Odin, Thor, Krishna, Vishnu, Ra, If they say just God, I only believe the one God, I'll point out that they are nearly as atheistic as me. I don't believe in 2,870 gods, and they don't believe in 2,869.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. There's just one more God that they've chosen to believe in. So, but it really does make the point. But for a lot of people, it goes over their head.
Well, great.
Is that the very last one?
I think, oh, no.
Oh, here we go. Okay. So, okay, this is funny. According to any religion, the set of religions that are right, and it's one tiny little dot in a big circle. The set of religions that are wrong, if you're religious, that's everybody else, right? And then according to atheism, the set of religions that are right, there's nothing in that circle. And the set of religions that are wrong, everything's in there. So there's really not that much of a difference.
No, there is not. But boy, what a difference it makes.
But boy, what a difference it makes. That's right. I think there might be one final slide. I always put one in that says final thoughts and takeaways. I knew it. I like this graphic. It has people from all over the world, all different religions. So I love it. I mean, I will say, since, we were growing up, I think there's a lot more tolerance, understanding, interfaith. When did you ever hear the word interfaith when we were growing up? You never would have like a concert or something at your church where another religion was invited in. It just didn't happen. There was nothing like that. And now everything is about interfaith, which is great, because I think the more you are exposed to other religions, the more you just get this big picture, right? And you have more of an understanding.
Yeah, we absolutely could not have any influence from other religions, because we might be stained by the filth of that other religion, So no, I never attended any other religious anything as an LDS person, nor was I ever encouraged to do so.
Yep.
The closest I came was Boy Scouts, where you might run into a Catholic church or a Catholic troop at scout camp, but you were all there for scout camp, not for religion. So.
Yeah, one summer I remember my mom let me go to like a little Bible study group that was at a house next door with a neighbor. I'm still trying to figure out how that would have happened. She probably just wanted to get me out of the house. But I do remember that she said, now this is another church, and they're not going to, tell you the things that we believe, but, you can just go and hang out with your friends. So, but for the most part, I couldn't interact either. There was this concept that, something might rub off on you, right? Or like you said, you send your kids to a bunch of different churches. I mean, I've told this story before, taking my boys when they were probably, 12, 9, and then a toddler, to a Baptist church in Salt Lake, right? And because I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to expose them to something. They're being raised in the heart of Utah County, right? Alpine area. Oh my gosh. So we go to this Baptist church, and it's Christmas time, and they are just raising the roof, and they are singing, and the ladies have on hats. And I was really getting into it. My kids, I could see, were very uncomfortable, right? So I realized it was probably too late to even expose them to some other faith traditions. But then at the end, the pastor gets up. He goes, if you are over 10 years old, I want you to come out into the lobby afterwards, and we're going to give you a $10 bill for Christmas time. My kids are, and if you are under 10, you're going to get a $5, their minds were blown. And then he said, every single family is going to get a big box of oranges. And so we went out in the lobby, and even though we didn't attend that church, they invited us up, and my kids got some cash, and we got a box of oranges, and they came away huge fans, right? They just saw this whole different energy, this whole different thing. So I really wished that I would have done that more. You know what I mean? Found more opportunities just to expand their horizons a little bit. So, but I didn't.
Absolutely. I'm the same way. I wish I'd have looked at other religious traditions, and that would have more quickly opened my eyes to this can't be right.
No, I think that's exactly right. Well, I'm glad we finally hit this topic, because I think it's really good to show all those little testimonies, in one place. And like I said, Mormon Stories did a good big long episode on that. And the video all together is available out there somewhere on the internet, but it just really shows you that you kind of, I don't know, your feelings are what guide you. And every single one of those people we just saw was completely sincere, and they arrived at another conclusion, not Mormonism. So what are you going to say?
And they all took Moroni's promise and prayed about what it was they were studying.
Yep, that's exactly right. They all use Moroni's process or promise. That's exactly it. So, all right. Well, I think we accomplished it. I think that was really good. Let us know in the comments. Are you older like we are? Do you remember belonging to the church when it was the only true church, right? And the leaders were hammering that from the stand, and you could not participate in anything interfaith? Or are you younger and you're like, I don't know what those guys are talking about? We're all interfaith. We do things with all kinds of different religions. So I think it's a positive step. That's for sure. I think it's positive that, they're trying to have a seat at the table, as I said before. So please like and subscribe to Mormonish Podcast. And if you'd like to be made aware of when the new episodes come out, you can hit the notification bell. If you would like to make a donation to Mormonish, we always have links in our show notes to donor box. And we absolutely appreciate every single one of you that do. You are just amazing, and you keep us going and buoy us up. And we just love you for that. Thank you. We have links also to our merch store if you want to pick up some Mormonish merch. And thanks again, Landon. I'm so happy that you're back in the hot seat, right? Now that your busy work period is kind of more over and you have a chance to be on a little bit more. It's good to have you back.
Well, I don't think it's over, but
damn it.
trying to break in when I can. So
trying to break in when you can. That's all we can say. That's right. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time on Mormonish. Bye-bye.
Bye.